It was newspaper columnist Doug Larson who said, "People are living longer than before, a phenomenon undoubtedly made necessary by the 30-year mortgage." In this lesson, we're going to calculate discount points for a mortgage. We're going to determine the break-even time for discount points, and we're going to calculate negative points. All to answer the question, is buying points a wise decision? Before we get into it, let's make sure we're ready for this lesson by looking at warm-up number 2. For which of the following expressions is 3 120 a solution? So we want to know when x is 3, does y equal 120? Looking at this first one, we can say 5 times 1 minus 3, close the parenthesis, go to the exponent, hit 2 times 3, and enter. We get 320, so yes, A is an answer. For the second one, we know that 100 times 3 is 300. Now I know this is a negative. We're going to add 300 to both sides, meaning we're going to have 340 plus 300 to have 640. Then divide that by 2 to get 320, so B works as well. For C, we're going to say 25 times 3 squared, hit the right arrow to come out of the exponent, plus 60 times 3 minus 85, and hit equals 320. It works for all three. Now let's take a look at a problem you will be able to do by the end of this lesson. Suppose Elizabeth and Nicholas had received an estimate for their closing costs in the amount of $10,500, excluding prepaid interest and homeowners insurance. Their lender offered them the option of reducing their cost by raising their mortgage interest rates according to this following plan. How can they determine if it is worth the 4.875% APR in exchange for zero closing fees? This situation is a reverse of the example 2, but the break-even calculations are similar. In example 2, Elizabeth and Nicholas paid for 2 discount points to reduce the APR. So the longer they remain in the house and pay their mortgage after the break-even point, the more of a savings they would be getting. That is not the case with negative points. We're going to subtract the lower interest monthly payment from the higher interest monthly payment, meaning $2745.04 minus $2677.48, and this is going to give us $67.56. Elizabeth and Nick are paying an extra $67.56 each month for getting a zero closing cost loan. In effect, they've saved $10,500 up front, but have to pay $67.50 extra each month for the savings. So if we take that $10,500 and divide it by $67.56, we get approximately $155.4. So after 155 months, they will have paid off the original closing cost. But if they are remaining in the house with the same mortgage, they will be paying an extra $67.56 each month they stay because they opted for negative points. Since they're planning on staying for the duration of the loan, the purchase of negative points would not be a good idea. Mortgage points are fees paid to a lending institution for the purpose of buying down or lowering the mortgage interest rate. Mortgage points are also known as discount points. The usual cost of a mortgage point is 1% of the loan amount. When faced with the choice of whether or not to buy discount points, it is important to do the math and compare the costs with and without the discount. Many factors enter into the decision for purchasing a discount points. First and foremost is the length of time that the buyer intends to keep the loan. The cost of the lower interest rate is an upfront expense. The savings from the expense may not be realized for a while. If the buyer only intends to keep the loan for a short period of time, then the points may not be cost effective. You should also take into consideration that the mortgage points are considered prepaid interest and may be deductible on IRS Form 1040 Schedule A. Elizabeth and Nicholas want to buy a new home in Sunset Park. They need to borrow $350,000. Their bank offers an opportunity for the couple to buy down the quoted interest rate of 4.5% by 0.125% per point purchased. Each point will cost 1% of the amount borrowed. What is the new interest rate if 2 points are purchased? And what will be the cost to purchase 2 points? The discount is 0.125% per point purchased. We're going to find the new interest rate if 2 points are purchased. This means 2 times 0.125. This is going to give us 0.25. So we're going to subtract that to find the new interest rate, subtracting it from 4.5 to give us 4.25 as the new interest rate. Each point costs 1% of the loan amount. So that means the $350,000 loan times 0.02, that's 1% for each point, and they purchased 2 points. That's going to cost $7,000. So it's going to cost Elizabeth and Nicholas $7,000 to drop their interest rate from 4.5% to 4.25%. Let's check our understanding. Suppose Patrick wants to take out a $500,000 loan. He's been quoted 3.8% interest rate for his loan. Patrick wishes to purchase 3 points, each of which will decrease the interest by 0.125%. Each point costs 1% of the loan. Determine Patrick's cost for the points and the new interest rate. So how much is it going to cost him to get this? We have a $500,000 loan, and if we purchase it, it's going to cost basically 3%. That's because it's 1% for each point. This means it's going to cost $15,000 to purchase down the interest rate. Now we're going to take 3.8 and we're going to subtract 3 times 0.125. This is going to bring us down to 3.425% interest. Now let's calculate the discount points for a mortgage. How can Elizabeth and Nicholas from example 1 determine whether or not the purchase of the points makes sense in this situation? Suppose Elizabeth and Nicholas plan on paying off the loan in 15 years. They need to determine when the break-even time will occur. The break-even time is the time it will take to recover the cost of purchasing the points. Assume that they had not purchased any points and use the monthly payment formula to determine the monthly payments for their original loan interest rate. We can see in the bottom formula on the Excel spreadsheet where I put in all of the values with the original interest rate. We're going to find a monthly payment of $2,677.48. The monthly payment for the 15-year loan of $350,000 at 4.5% is $2,677.48. Now we need to calculate the monthly payment as a discount interest rate. So in the top, I put in the discount interest rate of 4.25%. Here we can find the monthly payment for the 15-year loan of $350,000 at 4.25% is $2,632.97. So to find the amount saved each month by subtracting the lower monthly payments from the higher monthly payments. This means we're going to do $2,677.48 minus $2,632.97, and this is going to give us $44.51. The difference in the amount of payments for the two interest rates is $44.51. Elizabeth and Nicole will save that each month by purchasing 2 points up front. To find the length of time in months for the cost of the points to be recovered by the savings, we're going to divide the cost of the points by the savings that we got by purchasing points. Really, we're going to say $7,000 divided by 44.51. And that means it's going to take 157.27 months to save, or a little over 13 years to break even from the cost of the points. Since Elizabeth and Nicholas plan on keeping this loan for 15 years, they will realize the savings since the break-even point is less than the time of the loan. Now, let's check our understanding. If you're unsure about how long you're going to keep your house, does it make sense to buy points? Can you explain that answer? The longer you stay in your home past the break-even point, the more it's going to save. If a buyer thinks that he or she may sell before the break-even point, then buying points may not be worth the expense. Now, let's determine the break-even time for discount points. How much will Elizabeth and Nicholas from example 1 save over the life of their loan from the purchase of those 2 points? We're going to find the number of months in the life of the loan. So that's going to be 15 times 12 to give us 180 payments. There's 180 months in 15 years after all. The break-even point for the loan occurs at the 157th month. The $44.51 savings per month is only realized in the months after the break-even. So we're going to find the number of payments after the break-even months. That means we're going to subtract 157 from the 180 to get 23. If we take that 23 and multiply it by the $44.51 savings every month, then it is $1,023.73. So Elizabeth and Nicole will save $44.51 per month for a total of 23 months. The savings from the points is $1,023.73. The savings may have been even higher if they were also able to deduct the points on their tax return. Let's check our understanding here. How much would Elizabeth and Nicholas have saved if they purchased 3 points? So going back to that original spreadsheet, I put in the new interest rate of 4.125%. This means they have a monthly payment of $2,610.89. So if we subtract that from their original payment, this means they have a monthly savings of $66.59. We also have to figure out how much it's going to cost them. They were borrowing $350,000. Now they're going to pay 3% for this because it's 1% per point. So they're going to pay $10,500 to get that. This means $10,500 divided by 66.59 is going to equal 157.68. We can call that 158. If they have a total of 180 payments and they're going to be making 158 payments to hit their break even, then we wind up with 22 payments left over. We can multiply that by their monthly savings of $66.59. This is going to give us $1,464.98. Some lenders offer borrowers a way to decrease their bank's closing cost through the purchase of negative points. Negative points are the reverse of discount points, which we've just done. Rather than purchasing a deduction in your mortgage rate, the borrower credits you an amount towards the closing cost for the purchase of points that will increase your mortgage rate by a fraction of a percentage. Often, when you read about zero closing cost option, the lender is offering the borrower the opportunity to not pay any of the bank's closing costs in exchange for an increase in the mortgage rate. Keep in mind that there are some closing fees that may not be part of the bank's closing fees, such as payment to the lawyer, insurance company, or building inspector. The credit towards the closing costs vary by lender. For our purposes, we're going to say that each negative discount point purchased up to 5 increases the APR by 0.125% and yields a closing cost credit of 1% of the principal. Now let's calculate negative points. Suppose Elizabeth and Nicholas had received an estimate for their closing costs in the amount of $10,500, excluding prepaid interest and homeowners insurance. Their lender offered them the option of reducing their costs by raising their mortgage interest rates according to this following plan. How can they determine if it is worth the 4.875% APR in exchange for zero closing fees? This situation is a reverse of the example 2, but the break-even calculations are similar. In example 2, Elizabeth and Nicholas paid for 2 discount points to reduce the APR. So the longer they remain in the house and pay their mortgage after the break-even point, the more of a savings they would be getting. That is not the case with negative points. We're going to subtract the lower interest monthly payment from the higher interest monthly payment, meaning $2745.04 minus $2677.48, and this is going to give us $67.56. Elizabeth and Nick are paying an extra $67.56 each month for getting a zero closing cost loan. In effect, they've saved $10,500 up front, but have to pay $67.50 extra each month for the savings. So if we take that $10,500 and divide it by $67.56, we get approximately $155.4. So after 155 months, they will have paid off the original closing cost. But if they are remaining in the house with the same mortgage, they will be paying an extra $67.56 each month they stay because they opted for negative points. Since they're planning on staying for the duration of the loan, the purchase of negative points would not be a good idea. Let's check our understanding of this. Ashley is purchasing her first home. She's considering a $400,000 at 4.4% APR for 30 years. Her closing costs were estimated at $12,000. Her lender is offering her the opportunity to purchase negative points to cover all or part of the closing costs. Every negative point purchased up to 5 increases the APR by 0.125% and yields a closing cost credit of 1% of the principal. If Ashley purchases 3 negative points, what will her new interest rate be, and how long will it take her to hit the break-even point? So we know the original interest rate is 4.4%, and we're going to add to that 3 times 0.125%. This is going to give us 4.775% as her new interest. Now, when she purchased these points on a $400,000 mortgage, she purchased at 1% of the price, but she purchased 3 of them. So we're going to figure out what 3% of $400,000 is by multiplying. This means it's going to cost her $12,000. So using the Excel spreadsheet, on the bottom we run it with the 4.4%. We find there that her payment would be $2,003.04. When we run it with the new interest rate on top, we get $2,092.62 as the payment. By subtracting the lower from the higher, we get $89.58 per month. So $12,000 divided by $89.58 is going to give us approximately 134 months. Let's extend our understanding a little farther. Suppose that Ashley purchased 2 negative points and paid the remaining portion of the closing costs up front. If she stays in the house for 18 years, was purchasing the negative points a wise decision? This means from her 4.4%, we're going to add 2 times 0.125. This is going to give her a new interest rate of 4.65%. And we also want to know how much it's going to cost her to get it. So 400,000 times 0.02 means it's going to cost her $8,000 to get this. Now, the amount of the monthly payment is not going to change for the 4.4%, but in the top one, we put in 4.65%, and that's going to give us $2,062.55. This means that there's going to be a cost of $59.51 per month. So 8,000 divided by 59.51 means it's going to take approximately 134 months to break even. Now, she plans on staying in that house for 18 years. So 18 times 12 is 216. So no, she'll have hit the break-even point at 134 months. If she plans on staying for 216 months, she will be paying interest on her loan at the higher percentage rate for approximately 82 months more than after the break-even point.